Jim from Advanced Performance Shooting again, and in a previous video we introduced our nuclear reactor drill, a slight variation, with distance from the TPC reactor drill, but for all intents and purposes the same concept. We recommend that before you try our next drill, you actually get out, work the nuclear reactor drill, make sure you have a firm understanding of it, you've identified your baseline reaction to the buzzer time, and you've started to correct those fundamental errors that you might be making when you put distance to that challenge. But in this exercise, we call it our reactor meltdown drill. There's a very interesting study from the Tempe, Arizona Police Department where, for some reason, I don't recall, they wanted to measure the time it took from a finger straight to a shot fired, what the difference was, or if your finger was on the trigger. And I could see why that would be important. And what they surmised from their study was 0.06 of a second difference from a standard reaction time with your finger already on the trigger to a finger straight and gun fired reaction. So we chose to call it the reactor meltdown drill for a couple different reasons. There are instructors out there, there are shooters out there that if they see that movement on the trigger, they're going to be like, oh, you're slapping the trigger. And they're going to have people chasing a ghost for a pretty long time. So for my personal practice, I'll use the reactor meltdown drill slightly different than I use the nuclear reactor drill. I'll push it back to 10 yards, and if I can maintain that standard, the 0.22, 0.24 ballpark above my normal reaction average because my finger's straight, if I can maintain the level of accuracy, then I'll push it back another 5 yards. And I'll continue to do that until I get to that meltdown point where I can stay and work out the kinks, the fundamental errors that I might be making, knowing full well that there are changes in my grip, in part because I'm trying to move my trigger finger as a reaction to the buzzer. My first meltdown happened partway through that string of 5 shots, all trying to get those averages. And we stayed right at 2.3, 2.4 across those shots, but one of them just outside of that 8-inch circle. I healed the grip. I tightened the bottom edge of my grip just as I sent that shot. So I've cleaned up the target, put a new 8-inch, put a 5-inch circle around it, a 1-inch paster in the center of it, backed it off to 30 yards. I marked over the 2 mistakes that I made at the closer distances, and we'll look at it from 30 yards. And again, it's not my intent that the reactor meltdown drill be shot at a particular distance. 32 yards just happens to be where the 1-inch circle up front, it correlates from a minute of angle formula. I think we should be able to maintain that 8-inch level of accuracy. I personally think a 5-inch level of accuracy, regardless of the distance that we choose to shoot. It gives us options if we can maintain that level of control. But back at 30 yards, we'll see what we see in the reactor meltdown drill. So across the board, I knew going into this that my normal reaction time from finger straight off the buzzer should be about that 0.24. I averaged at 10 yards a 0.23, at 15 yards a 0.22, and a 0.23, a little bit less than when we got back to 30 yards. I made a mistake at 10, made another mistake in my grip at 15, but was able to maintain that 8-inch level of accuracy once I got back to 30 yards. Keep in mind, 20% of the time we should be training ourselves past the point of failure. That's how we improve. So Don't get used to shooting exercises up close. It's masking fundamental errors that you might be making. I go into this exercise knowing that if I make a mistake, it is very likely my grip where that mistake existed, and then I can further work to fix that. Don't just start out at 30 yards with this. Get to a distance where you can maintain that level of accuracy 80% of the time, and then work to increase the distance until you get back to the distance that you think is appropriate to train in.